stood in front of the mirror and fixed his uniform for the 10th time. His hands were shaking. Today was the most important day of his life. He had been chosen to work as the personal translator for Princess Lyra of. This was an honor that most translators could only dream about. The year was 2247. Earth had joined the Galactic Union 50 years ago, and now humans worked side by side with aliens from hundreds of different planets. Worked aboard a large diplomatic ship called the Starlight Accord. His job was to translate languages and help different species understand each other. He was good at his job. Very good. But this assignment was different. Princess Lyra was not just any alien. She was the third princess of the Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They were tall and elegant, with silver-blue skin and eyes that glowed like violet stars. They were known for their intelligence and their cold, logical way of thinking. They did not show emotions easily. They did not make jokes. They did not do anything without a careful plan. Took a deep breath and walked out of his small room. The hallways of the ship were busy with crew members running around, preparing for the princess's arrival. He passed by the medical bay and saw his childhood friend, checking some equipment. Looked up and grinned at him. She was the chief medical officer of the ship, and she had known since they were children back on Earth. She was the only person who knew all his secrets, including the embarrassing one. "You look like you are going to faint," she said. "I feel like I am going to faint," admitted. "Just be yourself. You are a great translator. The princess is lucky to have you." Laughed nervously. "She is a princess from an empire that controls 200 planets. I am a guy from who talks in his sleep." Covered her mouth to hide her laugh. Sleep talking was famous among the human crew. He did not just mumble quietly. He spoke full sentences, sometimes loudly, sometimes in different languages. Once, he had given an entire speech about why cats were better than dogs while completely asleep. The crew had recorded it and played it at his birthday party. "Just make sure your room is far from hers," said with a wink. Groaned and continued walking toward the main docking bay. The princess arrived exactly on time, were never late. The docking bay doors opened and she walked in with 4 guards behind her, felt his breath stop in his chest. She was beautiful, not in the way humans usually thought of beauty, but in a way that was hard to describe. Her silver-blue skin seemed to glow softly under the ship's lights. Her violet eyes looked at everything with calm intelligence. Her white hair was long and straight, falling down her back like a waterfall of snow. She wore a simple dark blue dress that somehow looked more elegant than any fancy gown. But what struck the most was her expression. She looked bored. Not rude or angry, just deeply, completely bored. Like she had done this 1,000 times before and expected nothing new or interesting. Commander stepped forward to greet her. He was the human liaison officer, a strict man who always followed the rules perfectly. "Welcome aboard the Starlight Accord, Your Highness," he said with a formal bow. "We are honored by your presence." "Thank you, Commander," the princess replied. Her voice was soft but clear. "I trust the arrangements have been made as requested." "Of course, Your Highness. May I introduce your personal translator for this journey? This is." He speaks 14 languages fluently, including formal and informal. Stepped forward and bowed deeply. His heart was beating so fast he was sure everyone could hear it. "It is my honor to serve you, Your Highness," he said in perfect. Princess Lyra looked at him. For a moment, her violet eyes studied his face. Felt like she was reading his entire life story just by looking at him. "Your accent is acceptable," she said finally. "We shall see if your skills match your reputation." And then she walked past him, following Commander to her quarters. Stood there feeling both relieved and disappointed. She had barely noticed him. He was just another human, another forgettable face in her long list of diplomatic tour. He told himself that this was fine. This was professional. He was here to do a job, not to make friends with alien royalty. That evening, met in the crew dining hall. He sat down across from her with a heavy sigh. "How did it go?" she asked. She said my accent was acceptable. Raised an eyebrow. "That is good, right? That is practically a compliment." "I guess," poked at his food. She just seemed so bored, like nothing could surprise her, like she has seen everything and found it all disappointing. Maybe she has. She is over 300 years old, you know, live a very long time. Had not thought about that. 300 years of diplomatic meetings, formal dinners, and careful political conversations. No wonder she looked tired. "I think she is fascinating," he said quietly, almost to himself. His eyes widened. "Oh no." "What?" "I know that look. That is your I find this person interesting look. She is an alien princess." "I know that. I am not stupid. I just said she was fascinating, that is all. She is different from anyone I have ever met. There is something behind those bored eyes. I can feel it." Shook her head but smiled. "Just be careful, and for the love of everything, do not talk about her in your sleep." Laughed. "My room is on the other side of the ship. There is no way she could hear me." He finished his dinner and walked back to his quarters. He was tired from the stress of the day, and he fell asleep quickly. He did not know that had exceptional hearing. Their ears could pick up sounds from very far away. It was a survival trait from their ancient past. He also did not know that Princess Lyra had decided to take a walk that night. She often walked alone when she could not sleep. The silence of the ship was peaceful compared to the noise of her royal palace. Her walk took her past the crew quarters. She was not paying attention to where she was going, but then she heard something that made her stop. A voice speaking coming from behind one of the doors. The princess, her eyes, like violet stars, never seen anyone so beautiful. Lyra stood very still. The voice was mumbling, unclear, but she recognized it. It was the translator, the young human with the nervous hands and the careful accent. He was talking in his sleep, about her. She listened for another moment. His words were scattered and dreamy, mixing with Korean and English. But her name kept appearing, spoken with a warmth that surprised her. Princess Lyra had lived for 312 years. She had received countless compliments, all of them calculated and political. No one had ever spoken about her with such simple, honest feeling. And certainly, no one had ever dreamed about her. She did not understand human dreaming. Her species did not dream. When slept, their minds went completely silent. The idea of an unconscious mind creating stories and images was strange and alien to her. But standing in that dark hallway, listening to a human mumble her name in his sleep, she felt something she had not felt in decades. Curiosity. She tilted her head slightly, and then, for no logical reason at all, she smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was real. She turned and walked away, her footsteps silent on the metal floor. Behind her continued to dream, unaware that his life had just changed forever. The days that followed were strange for Princess Lyra. She had done diplomatic tour many times before. She knew exactly what to expect. Formal meetings in the morning, cultural exchanges in the afternoon, boring dinners with important people in the evening. Everything was always the same. But now, something was different. She found herself watching the human translator more closely than she had ever watched anyone before. Was not special in any obvious way. He was average height for a human male. His black hair was neat but simple. His face was pleasant but not remarkable. He wore the same uniform as every other crew member. When he translated, he was professional and accurate, nothing more. But Lyra could not stop thinking about what she had heard that night. She had spent 300 years learning to read people. Politicians, diplomats, generals, kings. She could see through lies and fake smiles like they were made of glass. Everyone wanted something from her. Everyone had a hidden plan. But when talked in his sleep, there was no plan, no calculation, just pure, unguarded feeling. He had called her beautiful not to gain her favor, but because he truly felt it. He did not even know she was listening. This was new, this was interesting. During their translation sessions, Lyra began asking unusual questions. They were supposed to discuss trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. Instead, she found herself asking about dreams. "Tell me about human dreaming," she said one afternoon. They were sitting in her private meeting room, surrounded by data screens showing economic reports that neither of them was looking at. "Looked surprised, dreaming, Your Highness." "Yes, I have read about it, but the scientific papers do not explain it well. I want to understand from a human perspective." Thought for a moment. "Well, dreams happen when we sleep. Our minds create images and stories without our control. Sometimes they make sense. Sometimes they are completely strange. I once dreamed that I was a fish trying to give a presentation to a room full of cats." Lyra tilted her head. "That sounds terrifying." "It was actually funny when I woke up." He smiled, and Lyra noticed that his smile was warm and genuine. "Dreams are like movies that your brain makes just for you. They can be based on your memories, your fears, your hopes. Sometimes they mean something deep. Sometimes they mean nothing at all. And you cannot control them." "Not usually. Some people learn to control their dreams. It is called lucid dreaming. But for most people, dreams just happen. We are passengers, not drivers." Lyra found this concept deeply strange, for losing control was dangerous. Their society was built on logic, planning, and discipline. The idea of surrendering your mind to random images every night seemed foolish. And yet, humans had built an entire civilization while doing this. They dreamed every night and still managed to reach the stars. "Do all humans dream?" she asked. "Yes, Your Highness. Even if they do not remember their dreams, they still have them. Scientists say we need dreams to stay healthy. Our brains use that time to process emotions and memories." "I see." Lyra paused. She wanted to ask about his dreams specifically. She wanted to know if he remembered dreaming about her, but she could not ask that without revealing what she knew. Instead, she asked, "What do you dream about most often?" His cheeks turned slightly pink. "Oh, just normal things. Work mostly. Sometimes I dream about my family back on Earth. My mother makes the best kimchi stew, and sometimes I dream about eating it." Kimchi stew. It is a Korean dish, very spicy and warm, perfect for cold days. Lyra made a mental note to research Korean food later. She had never cared about human cuisine before, but now she wanted to understand everything about this strange species that dreamed of soup and princesses in equal measure. Over the next few weeks, their sessions became longer. Lyra asked about human music, human art, human love, human sadness. Answered every question honestly and thoughtfully. He never seemed annoyed by her curiosity. In fact, he seemed happy that she wanted to know. One day, Lyra asked a question that made pause. "Do humans dream about people they know?" "Yes, often. We dream about friends, family, people we have met. Sometimes we dream about strangers too, or people who are mixtures of different people we know." "And when you dream about someone, what does it mean?" Rubbed the back of his neck, looking embarrassed. "It depends. Sometimes it means you are thinking about that person a lot. Sometimes it means nothing. Dreams are strange that way." Lyra nodded slowly. She wanted to tell him that she knew. She wanted to see his reaction when he learned that she had heard him speak her name in the darkness, but something held her back. Perhaps she was enjoying this secret too much to share it. That evening, met in the medical bay. Was organizing medicine bottles, but she stopped when she saw his face. "You look confused," she said. "The princess is confusing me," admitted. He sat down on one of the medical beds. "She keeps asking me about dreams, about human emotions, about things that have nothing to do with diplomacy." Raised an eyebrow. "Maybe she is just curious. Do not dream, right?" "Right. Their minds go completely silent when they sleep. They think it is strange that we have entire adventures in our heads every night. Well, it is kind of strange when you think about it. Shook his head, but the way she asks, it feels personal somehow, like she is trying to understand something specific, not just general knowledge. Gave him a long look. Do you still find her fascinating? More every day, said quietly. She is not just a cold, logical alien. There is something underneath, a sense of humor almost. When I explained the fish and cat's dream, I swear she almost laughed. Almost laughing, that is big news. I know, and she remembers everything I tell her. Yesterday, she asked a follow-up question about something I mentioned 2 weeks ago. She actually listens. When was the last time someone really listened to you? Smiled softly. You are in trouble, my friend. I know, sighed, I know. That night, lay in his bed and thought about the princess before falling asleep. He thought about her violet eyes and the way they seemed to glow when she was interested in something. He thought about her questions and her hidden almost smiles. He thought about how she said his name, the syllables careful and precise on her alien tongue. He fell asleep thinking about her, and of course, he dreamed about her. In his dream, they were walking through a garden of silver flowers under a sky full of purple stars. She was asking him questions, and he was answering, and she was smiling for real this time, not hiding it. He did not know he was speaking out loud. He did not know his voice carried through the thin walls and into the hallway. And he definitely did not know that Princess Lyra was walking past his door again, her feet silent, her ears sharp, her heart beating strangely fast. She heard him say her name. She heard him describe the garden of silver flowers. She heard the warmth in his voice, unchanged from the first night. She stood in the darkness for a long time, listening to a human dream about her. When she finally walked away, she was not smiling. She was laughing, quietly, softly, with her hand over her mouth, but laughing all the same. It was the first time she had laughed in 50 years. The Starlight Accord made a routine stop at a trading outpost called Station Omega. It was a large space station where ships from dozens of different species came to trade goods, share information, and refuel. The station was supposed to be safe. It was supposed to be neutral territory. Nobody expected the attack. Was in his quarters when the first explosion shook the ship. The floor trembled beneath his feet, and the lights flickered. Alarm sirens started screaming through the hallways. Emergency alert, the ship's computer announced. Hull breach in Section 7. All personnel report to emergency stations. Grabbed his emergency kit and ran out of his room. The hallway was full of smoke and panicking crew members. Through the chaos, he heard Commander's voice on the communication system. This is not an accident. We are under attack. A radical faction has planted explosive devices aboard the ship. All security teams protect the VIPs. I repeat, protect the VIPs. His heart stopped, the princess. He changed direction and ran toward her quarters. He did not think about whether this was his job. He did not think about whether he was qualified. He just ran. The smoke got thicker as he moved through the ship. Another explosion rocked the corridor and he fell against the wall. His ears were ringing. His eyes were burning, but he kept moving. He found the princess's quarters in chaos. The door was blown open, and 2 of her guards were lying on the floor, unconscious but breathing. The other 2 guards were nowhere to be seen. And there was Lyra, standing in the middle of the room, her violet eyes wide with shock. Your Highness, ran to her, are you hurt? I am uninjured, she said, but her voice was shaking slightly. For the first time since he met her, she looked scared. The explosion came from the wall. My guards tried to protect me, but... Another explosion cut her off. This one was closer. The ceiling cracked and pieces of metal started falling. Without thinking, grabbed Lyra and pulled her to the side, covering her body with his own. Metal and debris rained down, where she had been standing just a second before. They stayed like that for a moment, his heart pounding against his chest, his arms wrapped around the princess. He could feel her breathing quickly. He could smell something like winter flowers in her hair. "We need to move," he said, pulling away. His face was red, but there was no time for embarrassment. "There is a secure chamber on the lower deck. We can hide there until security clears the ship." Lyra nodded. She did not argue, she did not ask questions. She simply followed him. The journey through the damaged corridors was terrifying. Fires burned in some sections. Broken pipes hissed with escaping gas. They passed injured crew members being helped by their colleagues. Twice, they had to hide when they heard unfamiliar voices, voices that might belong to the attackers. Had no weapon. He had no training for combat situations. He was a translator, not a soldier. But he moved through the chaos like he had done this 100 times. He checked corners before turning them. He listened for danger. He kept Lyra behind him at all times. At one point, they reached a hallway that was completely blocked by fallen debris. "We have to go another way," said, looking at his emergency map. "Through the maintenance tunnels." "Those tunnels are very narrow," Lyra said. "I know, can you fit?" She looked at the tight opening and then back at him. "I have never crawled through a maintenance tunnel before." Despite everything, almost smiled. "There is a first time for everything, Your Highness." They crawled through the dark, narrow tunnel. It was hot and cramped. Lyra's elegant dress got torn on the rough metal edges. Her perfect white hair became dirty and tangled, but she did not complain. She just followed through the darkness, trusting him completely. Finally, they reached the secure chamber, typed in the emergency code, and the heavy door slid open. They stumbled inside, and the door closed behind them with a solid thunk. The chamber was small but safe. Emergency lights gave everything a soft blue glow. There were medical supplies, food packets, and communication equipment. Most importantly, the walls were reinforced and could survive almost any explosion. "Check the communication panel. The signal is jammed. We cannot contact anyone." "Then we wait," Lyra said. She sat down on the floor, her back against the wall. Her usual elegance was gone. She looked tired and scared and very young despite her 300 years. Sat down across from her. "Are you okay?" "I told you, I am uninjured." "That is not what I asked." Lyra looked at him. For a long moment she did not speak. Then she said, very quietly, "I have never been in a situation like this. My guards have always protected me. I have never felt truly in danger before." "I am sorry. You should not have to feel this way." "But you protected me." Her violet eyes studied his face. "You have no weapon, you have no combat training, you could have been killed. Why did you do it?" Was confused by the question. "You could have been hurt. I could not let that happen." "But why? I am not your responsibility. Your job is to translate, not to protect." "I know, but," struggled to find the words. "I just could not leave you. When I heard about the attack, I did not think about my job or my responsibilities. I just thought about you, about making sure you were safe." Lyra was silent for a long time. In culture, self-sacrifice was rare. When risked themselves, it was always after careful calculation. They weighed the benefits against the costs. They made logical decisions. But this human had thrown himself into danger without any calculation at all. He had acted on pure instinct, pure feeling. He had protected her not because it was smart, but because he cared. She did not know what to say, so she said nothing. She just looked at him with her glowing violet eyes, and something in her expression changed, softened. They waited in the secure chamber for 3 hours, told her stories about Earth to pass the time. He told her about his childhood about the ocean and the mountains and his grandmother's cooking. He told her about his dream of traveling among the stars and meeting new species. Lyra listened to every word, and when she was tired, she closed her eyes and leaned her head back against the wall. She did not sleep, did not need sleep as often as humans, but she rested. Eventually, the security team found them. The attackers had been caught and the ship was safe again. Commander personally came to escort the princess back to her quarters. Before she left, Lyra turned to look at one last time. "Thank you," she said simply. "I was just doing what anyone would do," replied. "No," her voice was firm. "You were not, and I will not forget." She walked away, surrounded by guards, watched her go until she disappeared around a corner. That night he was in the medical bay. He had cuts and bruises that needed treatment, cleaned his wounds while shaking her head. "You are either very brave or very stupid," she said. "Maybe both." "What were you thinking? You could have died." "I was not thinking," admitted. "I just moved." Sighed and bandaged his arm. "Well, you saved a princess. That has to count for something." Closed his eyes, exhausted. He fell asleep in the medical bed and soon he was dreaming again. In his dream, he was running through dark hallways, searching for someone important, someone he had to protect. He mumbled in his sleep, words about explosions and fear and violet eyes, words about the princess and keeping her safe. He did not know that Lyra had come to check on him. She stood in the doorway of the medical bay, watching him sleep, listening to him dream about her. But this time she did not laugh. She felt something else instead, something warm and strange and new. She stayed for a long time just watching him breathe. After the attack, everything changed. Princess Lyra began requesting his presence more often. At first, the reasons were professional. She needed help translating documents. She needed someone to explain human customs. She needed a guide for the cultural exchange programs. But slowly, the professional reasons became excuses. She asked him to join her for meals. She invited him to walk through the ship's gardens with her. She requested his opinion on art and music and literature, even though his opinions had nothing to do with diplomacy. The crew noticed. Whispers spread through the hallways. The human translator was spending more time with the princess than her own advisors. Some people were jealous. Some people were curious. Some people were worried. Commander called into his office one morning. "Sit down," the commander said. His face was serious. "I need to talk to you about the princess." Sat down, his stomach tight with nervousness. "Yes, sir." "I have been watching you too. The princess seems to enjoy your company. That is good for diplomatic relations." He paused. "But I need to remind you of the boundaries. You are a translator. She is royalty. Whatever friendship is developing between you, it cannot become anything more." "I understand, sir. I would never." "I know you would never do anything inappropriate. You are a good man. That is why I am warning you now before things get complicated." Commander's voice softened slightly. "Guard your heart. Are not like us. They think differently. They feel differently. What looks like affection to you might just be curiosity to her." Nodded, but the commander's words left a cold feeling in his chest. That evening, Lyra invited him to the observation deck. It was the most beautiful part of the ship. Large windows showed the endless stars outside. Comfortable chairs faced the view. The lights were dim, creating a peaceful atmosphere. They sat in silence for a while, looking at the stars. Lyra seemed thoughtful. Her violet eyes reflected the distant lights like tiny mirrors. "I have something to tell you," she said finally. Looked at her. "Yes, Your Highness." "I have not been completely honest with you." She turned to face him. "Do you remember the first night you arrived on this ship?" "Of course. I met you for the first time. You said my accent was acceptable. That night I could not sleep. I went for a walk through the ship, and I passed by your quarters." Felt a strange feeling in his stomach, a sense that something important was about to happen. "Have very good hearing," Lyra continued. "We can hear sounds from far away. It is how our ancestors survived on our dangerous home world." She paused. "That night I heard you talking in your sleep." The color drained from his face. "What?" You were speaking in Korean, and in English. You were talking about me, about my eyes being like violet stars, about finding me beautiful. Wanted the floor to open up and swallow him whole. His face turned bright red. His hands started shaking. He opened his mouth to apologize, to explain, to say anything at all. But Lyra held up her hand to stop him. Let me finish. I did not just hear you once. I heard you many times. Every few nights I would walk past your quarters and listen. I know this sounds strange. Perhaps it was wrong of me, but I could not help myself. Her voice became softer. Do not dream. When we sleep, our minds are silent. We have no images, no stories, no adventures, just darkness and quiet. Slowly started to understand. So dreaming is unusual to you. Dreaming is extraordinary to me. Her eyes met his. Humans carry entire universes inside their minds. You close your eyes and you create worlds. You meet people who do not exist. You experience things that never happened. Your consciousness never truly stops, it just changes form. I never thought about it that way. And what fascinated me most was that you carry me in your dreams, not because you chose to, not because it helps you in any way. Your unconscious mind, the part of you that you cannot control, thinks about me. She looked down at her hands. No one has ever dreamed of me before. It should not be possible for me to exist in someone's mind without their awareness. But I do. I exist inside you, in a place you cannot see or touch or command. Was quiet for a long moment. He was still embarrassed, but something else was growing in his chest, something warm. Why did you not tell me before? He asked. I do not know. Perhaps I was enjoying the secret. Perhaps I was not sure what it meant. She looked up at him again. But after the attack, after you risked your life for me without any reason or logic, I realized something. What did you realize? That I wanted to exist in your dreams. That I wanted you to think about me. That somehow, without planning it, without understanding it, I had started to care about you. The words hung in the air between them. Outside the window, stars burned in the endless dark. His heart was beating so fast he could barely breathe. He had spent weeks trying to hide his feelings. He had told himself that the princess would never notice him, that he was just a tool for her diplomatic work. And now she was sitting in front of him, confessing that she had listened to his dreams and found something meaningful in them. I do not just dream about you, Your Highness, he said quietly. I think about you when I am awake too, when you ask me questions, when you laugh at my stories, when you look at me with those eyes. I have never met anyone like you. You are the most fascinating person I have ever known, human or alien. Lyra's expression changed. Her usual calm mask cracked, and underneath was something vulnerable, something real. I do not understand these feelings, she admitted. Are not supposed to feel this way. We make decisions with logic, not emotion. But when I am with you, my logic fails. I want things I cannot explain. I feel things I cannot calculate. Maybe that is what humans call caring about someone. Is that what you call it? Smiled softly. We have other words for it too, but yes, caring, that is a good start. They sat together in the observation deck for hours. They talked about their lives, their fears, their hopes. They talked about the differences between their species and the surprising similarities. They talked about things that mattered and things that did not matter at all. When they finally said goodnight, Lyra stopped at the door. She said, it was the first time she had used his name without his title. Yes. Tonight when you dream, I hope I am there. She walked away before he could respond, but stood frozen in place, his heart full of something bright and terrifying and wonderful. That night he dreamed of walking through a field of stars with a princess by his side. She was laughing, really laughing, and her laugh sounded like music. He did not know if he talked in his sleep. He did not know if she was listening. But somehow he felt that she was there with him in the dream, even though that was impossible. And for the first time in his life, impossible felt like a promise instead of a limit. The message arrived on a cold morning, 3 weeks after the confession on the observation deck. Lyra was in her quarters when the official communication came through. The seal of the royal court glowed on the screen. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened it. The message was written in formal, the language used only for matters of highest importance. It came directly from the Royal Council, the group of advisors who helped rule the empire alongside her father, the king. Your Royal Highness, Princess Lyra of, it has come to the attention of the Royal Council that you have developed an inappropriate association with a human crew member aboard the diplomatic vessel. This behavior does not reflect the dignity expected of royalty. You are hereby summoned to return to immediately for review of your conduct. Further association with the human in question is strongly discouraged. The future of our relations with Earth must not be compromised by personal indiscretions. By order of the Royal Council. Lyra read the message 3 times. Each time the words felt heavier. She had known this moment would come. News traveled fast, even across the galaxy. Someone on the ship must have reported her behavior, the long walks with, the private meals, the hours spent talking in the observation deck. To eyes, her actions were scandalous. She sat alone in her room for a long time, thinking. Her duty to the Empire had always been her first priority. She had spent 300 years serving her people. She had attended countless diplomatic meetings, signed countless treaties, and smiled countless fake smiles. She had never complained. She had never asked for anything for herself. But now, for the first time, she wanted something. She wanted his warmth and his honesty and his ridiculous sleep-talking. She wanted to understand human dreaming. She wanted to feel the way she felt when he looked at her. And her empire was telling her to give it up. The door chime rang. She knew who it was before she answered. "Come in," she said. Entered, he looked worried. "I heard about the summons. The whole ship is talking about it. News travels fast." "Lyra, I am sorry. This is my fault. If I had kept my distance, if I had been more professional." "Stop," her voice was firm. "This is not your fault. I made choices. I listened to your dreams when I should have walked away. I invited you to spend time with me. I told you my feelings. These were my decisions." Shook his head. "But I should have known better. You are a princess. I am nobody. Our worlds are too different." "Our worlds are different, that is true." Lyra stood up and walked toward him. "But difference does not mean impossibility. It just means we have to work harder." The Royal Council does not seem to agree. Lyra smiled, but it was a sad smile. The Royal Council is made of very old who fear change. They see humans as temporary creatures, too emotional and too unpredictable. They do not understand why I would care about one. Maybe they are right. Maybe I am just a temporary creature who will be gone in the blink of an eye compared to your. Everyone is temporary, stars burn out, empires fall. Even my people with all our long lives will someday end. She reached out and took his hand, her silver-blue fingers wrapped around his human ones. The question is not how long something lasts. The question is whether it matters while it exists. Looked at their joined hands. His heart ached with emotions he could not name. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I do not know yet, but I will not let them make this decision for me." For the next few days, Lyra thought and planned. She spoke with Commander about the political situation. She reviewed centuries of diplomatic history between and Earth. She read human philosophy books about love and choice and freedom. And slowly, a plan formed in her mind. The day of the official hearing arrived. It was broadcast across all channels. Millions of people watched as Princess Lyra stood before the Royal Council in a holographic chamber aboard the ship. The council members looked down at her with cold eyes. They were ancient, some over 1,000 years old. They had seen empires rise and fall. They did not approve of young royals making emotional decisions. "Princess Lyra," the head counselor said, "you have been accused of conduct unbecoming of your station. What do you have to say in your defense?" Lyra stood tall. She was wearing her formal royal dress, the one reserved for the most important occasions. Her white hair was perfectly arranged. Her violet eyes glowed with determination. "I do not deny the accusations," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "I have spent time with a human. I have developed feelings for him. I have done things that our tradition considers inappropriate." Murmurs spread through the council. "But I am here to argue that our traditions are wrong." The murmurs turned to shocked silence. "For 300 years I have served the Empire. I have done everything asked of me. I have sacrificed my personal desires for the good of our people, and I will continue to serve. But I refuse to believe that service requires me to be empty inside." She looked directly at the holographic images of the counselors. "Humanity is different from us. They dream, they feel, they act on instinct and emotion. For centuries we have looked down on these traits as weaknesses, but I have learned something during this mission. Human emotions are not weaknesses, they are strengths." She told them about how he had risked his life to protect her without any logical reason, about how he dreamed of her without controlling it, about how his care for her was pure and unplanned and beautiful. The Galactic Union was built on the idea that different species can learn from each other. But we cannot learn if we refuse to truly connect. We cannot grow if we keep our hearts closed. Her voice rose with passion. "I'm not asking to abandon my duties. I'm asking to fulfill them in a new way. Let me stay aboard this ship as a permanent ambassador to humanity. Let me build bridges between our peoples, not through cold diplomacy, but through genuine understanding. Let me show the galaxy that it can care about a human, and that this caring makes us stronger, not weaker." The council chamber was silent. The counselors exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Then Lyra said the words that would change everything. "And I officially request that be assigned as my permanent liaison. His knowledge, his honesty, and his humanity make him uniquely qualified for this role. I will work with no one else." The broadcast ended with no decision announced. The council would deliberate in private. Watched the recording in his quarters, tears in his eyes. He had never heard anyone speak about him that way. He had never known anyone willing to fight for him so openly. When Lyra returned to the ship, he was waiting for her in the hallway. "That was incredible," he said, "but you might have just ruined your political career." Lyra smiled. For once it was not a calculated smile. It was real and warm and slightly nervous. "Perhaps, but I finally said what I believe. Whatever happens next, I will not regret it." They stood together in the empty hallway, two people from different worlds who had chosen to face the future together. The council's answer would come soon, but in that moment neither of them cared. The Royal Council's response came 2 weeks later. Against all expectations, they agreed to Lyra's proposal. The decision was not unanimous. Many counselors still opposed her, but the king himself had intervened. He had watched his daughter's speech, and for the first time in centuries, he had seen real passion in her eyes. He remembered what it felt like to be young and in love, even if those memories were faded with age. So Princess Lyra became the first permanent ambassador aboard a human vessel, and became her official liaison, a fancy title that meant they could spend time together without anyone complaining. The months that followed were the happiest of both their lives. Lyra learned about human culture not from books but from living it, taught her to cook simple Korean dishes. She burned the rice 3 times before getting it right, but she refused to give up. He showed her human movies, and she cried during a romantic comedy, something she later completely. He introduced her to human music, and she became strangely obsessed with jazz, saying it was the most logical form of chaos she had ever experienced. In return, Lyra taught about philosophy and art. She showed him how to meditate in the style, achieving perfect mental stillness. She taught him traditional dances, which were more like slow mathematical patterns than what humans called dancing. She shared stories of her 300 years, the places she had seen, and the people she had known. They argued sometimes. Lyra could be stubborn and cold when she was stressed, could be emotional and reckless when he was worried. Their differences caused friction, but they learned to work through it. They learned to apologize and forgive. They learned that caring about someone meant accepting their flaws along with their strengths. Human relations improved dramatically. Other aliens noticed the change. The princess's speech had spread across the galaxy, inspiring debates about emotion and logic, tradition and change. Young started questioning old assumptions. Some humans became curious about culture instead of fearing it. One evening, Lyra sat within the observation deck. It had become their favorite place. Outside, a beautiful nebula painted the sky in colors of pink and gold. "I have a wish," Lyra said quietly. "What is it?" "I want to know what dreaming feels like." Looked at her with surprise. "You have read all those books about it. You have listened to me explain it hundreds of times. Reading is not experiencing. Listening is not feeling." Her violet eyes reflected the nebula's glow. "I have spent my whole life observing from the outside. For once, I want to understand from the inside." Thought for a moment, there might be a way. He told her about a new technology developed by human researchers. It was called a neural link, a device that could connect two minds during sleep. It was experimental and risky. It had only been tested a few times, but if it worked, two people could share a dream. One person becomes the dreamer, explained. The other person becomes a visitor. The visitor can see and feel everything in the dream, but they cannot control it. It is like being a passenger in someone else's mind. Lyra's eyes widened with interest. "You would do this, share your dream with me?" "If it means you could finally understand what I experience every night, yes. I would do anything." They approached with the idea. The doctor was skeptical at first. The technology was untested and the risks were unknown. But she saw the determination in both their eyes, and she knew there was no point arguing. "Fine," she said, "but I am supervising the entire procedure, and if anything goes wrong, we stop immediately." The night of the experiment arrived, and Lyra lay on medical beds in the ship's research lab. Delicate sensors were attached to their heads, connected by thin wires. Monitors displayed their brain activity in glowing waves. "Check the equipment one last time. Are you both sure about this?" "Yes," they said together. "Okay, the sedative will put you to sleep in about 30 seconds. Your brain will generate the dream. Lyra, you will be pulled into his dreamscape. It should feel real, but remember, it is not real. Nothing can hurt you there." The sedative flowed into their veins. Felt his eyes getting heavy. He reached out and took Lyra's hand. Her silver-blue fingers wrapped around his. "See you on the other side," he whispered. And then everything went dark. When Lyra opened her eyes, she was standing in a field of flowers under a purple sky. The flowers were silver, just like the garden had described in his sleep all those months ago. The air smelled like spring and something warm she could not name. She looked down at her hands. They seemed real. She could feel the breeze on her skin. She could hear birds singing in a language she did not recognize. "You made it." She turned around, was standing behind her, smiling, but he looked different here. Younger somehow, lighter, like the weight of the waking world had been lifted from his shoulders. "Is this your dream?" she asked. "This is my mind. Everything you see comes from inside me. The flowers, the sky, the birds. They are all pieces of my memories and imagination mixed together." Lyra walked through the field, touching the flowers. Each touch sent ripples of color across the petals. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. "This is impossible," she whispered. "Your mind created all of this without any effort." Every night, humans dream every night. Sometimes the dreams are scary, sometimes they are sad, but sometimes, he gestured at the silver field, sometimes they are like this. They walked together through the dreamscape, showed her his memories, his childhood home inn with its view of the ocean, his grandmother's kitchen filled with the smell of cooking food, his first day on the Starlight Accord, nervous and excited and alone. And she saw herself, woven through his memories like silver thread. Her face appeared in crowds, her voice echoed in conversations, her eyes glowed in the darkness of his unconscious mind. "You really do carry me inside you," she said. Her voice was shaking. "I told you, you are part of me now, even in places I cannot control." Lyra felt something wet on her face. She touched her cheek and found tears, did not cry. Their bodies did not produce tears, but here in this dream she was crying. "I did not know it was possible to feel this way," she said. "To be inside someone else, to see yourself through their eyes, it is overwhelming." Took her hand. "This is what it means to be human. We are never truly alone. We carry everyone we love with us every moment of every day, even when we sleep." They stood together in the silver field until the dream began to fade. The colors blurred. The sounds became distant. Reality pulled them back slowly, gently. When Lyra woke in the medical lab, she was still crying, and she was still holding his hand. Rushed over with concern. "Are you okay? Did something go wrong?" Lyra shook her head. She could not speak. She could only look at and smile through her tears. "No," she finally said. "Nothing went wrong. Everything went exactly right." She had finally understood what it meant to dream, and she would never see the universe the same way again. 1 year had passed since the dream-sharing experiment. The Starlight Accord returned to Earth for the first Human Unity Festival. It was a celebration unlike anything the planet had ever seen. Ships from dozens of species filled the sky. Millions of people gathered in cities around the world to watch the ceremonies. Music from 100 cultures played in the streets. And at the center of it all was Princess Lyra. She stood on a stage in Seoul, the capital of Korea. The choice of location was not accidental. Behind her, ancient palaces mixed with modern towers. It was a city that understood how to honor the past while embracing the future. Millions of people watched her speech, both in person and through broadcasts across the galaxy. Humans and dozens of other species listened as she spoke about bridges between worlds. "1 year ago I made a choice," she began. Her voice was calm and clear, carried by speakers to every corner of the plaza. "I chose to stay among humans. I chose to learn their ways, to share their struggles, to understand their hearts. Many thought I was making a mistake. Many thought I was abandoning my heritage." She paused, letting her violet eyes sweep across the crowd. "But I was not abandoning anything. I was discovering something new. I was discovering that the universe is not made of walls between species. It is made of bridges waiting to be built." She spoke about human dreaming, about how a species that lived brief lives managed to create infinite worlds inside their minds every night, about how their emotions, so often dismissed as weaknesses, were actually their greatest strength. "Humans taught me to feel," she said. "They taught me that logic alone is not enough, that caring about someone, even when it is not practical, even when it is not safe, is the most meaningful thing any being can do." The crowd was silent. Some people were crying, others were holding hands with friends and loved ones. Today, we celebrate the first year of true partnership between our peoples, but this is not an ending. It is a beginning of understanding, a beginning of connection, a beginning of dreams shared between worlds. When she finished speaking, the applause was deafening. It echoed off the buildings and filled the sky. Lyra smiled, a real smile, and bowed to the crowd. Behind her, standing in the shadows of the stage, watched with pride. He was no longer a simple translator. The Galactic Union had named him Earth's first ambassador to the Empire. It was a title he still found hard to believe. The boy from who talked in his sleep was now one of the most important diplomats in human history. But none of that mattered as much as the woman standing on that stage. After the ceremony, they escaped the crowds and found a quiet balcony in one of the old palaces. The city spread out below them, glittering with lights. The celebration continued in the streets, music and laughter rising like a wave. Lyra leaned against the railing and took a deep breath of earth air. It was different from the recycled air on the ship. Richer, somehow, more alive. "Your planet is beautiful," she said. "So is yours, I saw the pictures." "Pictures are not the same as being there. I want to show you someday. The silver forests, the twin moons, the cities that float above the clouds." Moved to stand beside her, "I would like that." They stood in comfortable silence for a while. The year had changed them both. Lyra laughed more easily now, worried less. They had learned to be partners, not just in work but in life. "I have a confession," Lyra said suddenly. Looked at her with a small smile. "Another one, should I be worried? The first night I heard you speak my name in your sleep, I almost woke you." Her eyes sparkled with the memory. "I wanted to know what you were dreaming. I wanted to ask you directly what you meant by the things you said." "Why did you not?" "Because I realized something important." She turned to face him fully. "The dream was not mine to interrupt. It was yours. Your mind had chosen to think about me without any prompting, without any reward. I was there because some part of you wanted me there, even a part you could not control." Nodded slowly. "I remember those dreams, at least some of them. You were always glowing in them, like you carried stars inside your skin." "In your dreams, I am more beautiful than in reality." "No," he shook his head. "In my dreams, I see you the way you really are. The dreams just show the truth more clearly." Lyra reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were cool against his skin, smooth and silver blue. "I spent 300 years thinking I understood the universe," she said softly. "I studied science and philosophy and politics. I learned how stars are born and how empires fall. I thought I knew everything important. And now I know I was wrong. The most important things cannot be studied or calculated. They can only be felt." She stepped closer. "You taught me that. You taught me that feeling is not weakness. It is the only thing that makes existence meaningful." Took her hands in his. "For what it is worth, you taught me things too. You taught me that it is okay to be patient. That understanding takes time. That not everything needs to be expressed in words or actions. Sometimes just being present is enough." They stood together beneath the unfamiliar stars of Earth, two people from different worlds who had found each other against all odds. Below them, the city celebrated. Humans and aliens danced together. Children who had never met an extraterrestrial played games with beings from distant galaxies. The old walls were crumbling, one smile at a time. "What happens now?" asked. "Now we continue. We build more bridges. We share more dreams. We show the galaxy that connection is possible, even between the most different minds." "That sounds like a lot of work." "It will be, but we will not be alone." She squeezed his hands. "We will have each other." Laughed softly. "You know, I still talk in my sleep. Says it has gotten worse since we shared that dream. Apparently now I narrate entire adventures out loud." Lyra's eyes lit up with amusement. "I know. I still listen sometimes when I walk past your quarters." "You do? After everything you still listen?" "Of course. Your dreams are my favorite stories," she smiled. "They are unpredictable and emotional and sometimes completely ridiculous. They are everything stories are not, and I love them." Felt his heart fill with warmth. After a year of working together, of learning and growing and sometimes fighting, her words still had the power to take his breath away. "Then I will keep dreaming," he said, "for both of us." They turned back to look at the city. The festival would continue for 3 more days. There would be speeches and meetings and diplomatic events. Their work was far from over. But in that moment, none of it mattered. There was only the night sky, the distant music, and two hearts beating together in the space between worlds. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a new dream was already forming. A dream of silver forests and twin moons and a princess who had learned to laugh. He did not know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, she would be there, in his waking hours and in his sleep, in his thoughts and in his dreams. And that was more than enough. That was everything.